So let's take a look at how we're going to trigger our kick and our snare for this session. So let's get familiar a bit with our drums here. Hi, pretty simple drums. So we want to trigger our kick to kind of be able to give it some different character. So what I like to do before I trigger is I create a duplicate of my track. So you can see that if I make this track active, this is a duplicate of my track under my main kick in, right? So it's exactly the same information. What I like to do in Pro Tools is to clean up my trigger. I'm going to use the Command U, which is strip silence, right? So with strip silence, if I zoom in a bit, I'm going to be able to kind of go in on my drums and try to get rid, if I zoom in on the waveform, try to get rid of any of the in-between things like the snare, the hi-hat, the cymbals, right? Now you'll notice that I use a little clip start pad of 17 milliseconds and a clip end pad. So I don't necessarily need to get just the transient, but I'm shortening the end because I just want really the attack, right? So if I strip this, right, we have something that would sound like this. Right, so it's just a clean kick, so you have to make sure that you've done that for the whole track, right? Now I go one step a bit further. You remember there was that little pre-roll and post-roll right after the cut. So I'm going to do that with fades now. I got a 15 millisecond fade in, 30 millisecond fade out. So now I fade in and out, right? All those attacks. Now, usually I would do that also on a new playlist, so I can always go back. And here what I do is I consolidate my playlist. So this is a consolidated playlist, right? So it's just like the bursts. Now, once I have done this, I'm gonna maybe hide that and make inactive. What I did is, you see, I have some prepared stereo tracks, right? Onto which I dragged down my trigger click region, and I use a bit the gain to actually make it a bit louder to trigger more easily my software. So the software I'm using here to trigger is going to be the aptly named Trigger 2 by Slate, right? And here I have 3 categories of kicks prepared: attack kicks, boom kicks, and knock kicks. So let's take a listen. Now I'm going to open the attack kick, and you see I have about 6 or 7 choices here. So when I play now my song, I have superimposed my attack kick. And now I can choose, so I can choose quickly between those. I can tune them, and behind my trigger, I also have a great transient shaper by Softtube. So if I wanted to even tweak further my sampled kicks, I could add them some sustain or remove sustain, add some punch, and some clipping. I could do that too. But the idea here is to keep it kind of simple. We have our kick and we can enhance it with more attack. Right? Very plasticky attack here. The plick. another skin. An SP12. Right, so I could see I can tune it up or down. But that's my attack kicks here, right? Let's listen to our boom kicks. Trigger. So this is another instrument. It's a dark 808. An attacky 808. And a long 909 also, right? So this is to add some boom. So I can add both if I want. Add some attack, some boom, and have then the knock kicks. So let's listen to the one that I call knocks here. They are superimposed to the original drums here. Short 808. Some oomph, some knock, electronic knock. This one is knock and attack, kind of. And I also have a nice lean drum here, the lean kick. Right? So to recap, we made a cleaner trigger clip that then I dragged on to my attack kick, boom kick, and knock kick tracks, and I have those triggers that I can add to my regular kick. So once again, I can have the regular drums, I can put some attack kick to it. I guess it's muted. There you go. I could have a boom kick to it. I guess I muted it too. Let's put the dark 808. Pretty massive. And I could add some knock to it. Right? Now I could play with the loudness of those elements. More attack. More boom. And more knock. Right? So let's go over our snare. You'll see that if I go to the right here, I have a snare trigger track. So it's the same principle. I cleaned it up. Let's zoom in a bit. I cleaned it up. Make sure there was nothing in between the hits. Then I dragged it down to all my snare trigger tracks here, and I raised the level by about 9 dB, right? So now we have the same kind of choices. I'm gonna maybe narrow the mix here. I'm not gonna add any kick triggers, but now let's take a listen a bit at the categories. I have what I call the beauty snare, from the snare called the Black Beauty. So I have 3 of them here. Bit darker sounding. Pretty similar, right? They're in the same category. Then I have the snare that I called here the knock snare. So I have a few choices. Right? A lumberjack. Knock knock. The puff. She drives me crazy. The brush slap. And a bit of a more electronic knock. Now you could combine them all if you wanted. It becomes kind of crazy. But why not? So you have like a pretty quick palette here of added sounds to your snare to impart a bit of another flavor here. We have our 808s, not a lot of 808s, but there we go. More peaky 808, and what I call a papery electronic snare. And I can tune it, of course. Quickly add flavor. The round snares. Honest 2. Honest 3. Another honest. A round. Another round. And yet another one. Then we move on to the snare, what I call stadium. This is warehouse. Snappy warehouse. Smack my face. In your face. And an electronic warehouse. So these have more of a what I call the stadium feel, the tail, right? The bigger than life ID. Doesn't work for every drum kit and every song, of course. The ring one, there's only 2 here, because personally I would kind of almost never want to use that, but some songs might want to add some ring. Right? Another ring. That's the ring. And then, last but not least, the laser snares. I only have 2 also. It's pretty specific. It's like laser blasters. It's a bit like a tom, but you know, on some songs this could maybe be useful. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different snare flavors with, you know, 7 snare categories and 3 kick categories, right? With different choices to enhance our regular drums pretty easily, add a little touch of flavor in our mixes. If you'd like to get this sample back, just email me, Cyril@mixedbyt.com.